welcome to another coffee chat here at Old Mutual Wealth with myself, Tian Hasselman, and today I'm joined by my friend and colleague, the head of Old Mutual International, Trevor John. Trevor, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here, Tian.
Now, Trevor, we've seen many clients starting to diversify their money offshore at Old Mutual Wealth. And as a result of that, we've seen exponential growth in Old Mutual International. If I think about some of the reasons, we only make up 0.4% of the global economy. There's only 300 companies you can invest into locally. You can access the broader markets. You can invest with Old Mutual International into different currencies. You tax at a lower rate, so not 18% potentially for capital gains, only 12%. The tax is handled within the investment. There's no executors fees. There's continuity because you have a beneficiary nomination for ownership. And there is no death event triggered because you are beneficiary for ownership. So there's potentially no capital gains tax if the policyholder were to pass away. Now, thinking about all these benefits, I think that's some of the reasons why we've seen all this growth in Old Mutual International. But one thing we've always struggled with, maybe you can comment on a bit more, is people almost had to save up money and then they can get their money, to quote you, a job offshore. And a lot of people want to actually invest more frequently offshore, or they might have smaller amounts. And this has always been something I think that's almost held us back a little bit. Do we now, for the first time, actually have a potential solution for this particular problem?
Yes, Tian, the short answer is yes. But the way when someone's deciding how they want to get their money a job, it's often based on, do you have a lump sum of money that you want to invest? Or are you going to build this into your habits? So you have a recurring plan of how you're actually going to do it. So every month I'm going to take this much of the money that I get, and you're going from you being the one who's generating the money to your money being the one that's generating the money. And that's a portion. So we've always on the international side just waited for people to build up a pot of money that they want to take offshore because there is additional friction. So the reality is, what we really do is work chipping away at those frictions. So I think of three frictions. There's the one is the country that you're kind of born in, the currency that you think in, and then the job that you make your money from. So ironically, we are the ones who generate our wealth. And that places constraints around that. So one of the ways I like to think of investing is actually almost separating how you make money from like your passions. Because the more money you have, the more it empowers you and those you love to make different decisions that aren't directed by, what are you good at? What are other people not good at? And how does this get paid? And so building investing into your habits, like almost embodying wealth creation, is something that I'm really passionate about. And so what we're launching is really a recurring version of the exact same product that we currently have. So kind of like if you think of it in terms of investing offshore being like going on an offshore holiday, it's planning that you're going to go on this regularly. So you build that into your plans. You say, actually, I quite like going offshore. So yes, I like buying and I like going to the bush, but I'm going to go regularly. And I know for myself, I went overseas for the first time when I was 18, and I ended up in this little room where we were like, I had to have like a scan of my chest, and I was there for a couple of hours, and they were figuring out whether they could trust me or not. And eventually I went through the whole process of getting a British passport. And that means now when I go through, I get a little scan of my eye. I might be in the cab 20 minutes after landing because it's so fast. And so I like that idea of creating a sustainable process. And it actually connects back to another reason why I think people don't invest offshore enough. Is quite simply they're scared. They haven't done it before. And so there's paperwork involved. And if you do something regularly, you get used to it. And that's really why we're going in this direction of recurring premiums. One is to make it simpler, but then also, as you say, it can be an obstacle. Say you don't have $15,000, you've just got 10,000 Rand a month. Now you can build that into the process and get those fantastic benefits that you get from investing offshore. So you're not stuck in that container. And I think a key point that I like to emphasize is that offshore investing is not a competition between South Africa and the world. You want to participate in the world. Like, we are richer for playing rugby against the All Blacks in Argentina than we would be if we were still playing sort of Transvaal and KwaZulu-Natal fighting it out for the Currie Cup. But the world is a rich place. You can create wealth here and access those opportunities through creating the right savings habits.
Yeah, and the great thing for me is that you're getting that behavior on a monthly basis, and I'm now getting the opportunity to get my money to grow in hard currency, but also be taxed in hard currency. And there's various benefits, and I'd like you to elaborate on that as to doing it monthly as opposed to almost having to build up money. Now I've built up X amount of money, I've got to take it out, and maybe I'm earning interest on it, being taxed on that, or I built up a lump sum and now I'm being taxed as a capital gain, and then only I can send it offshore. What are some of the benefits of now sending my money directly offshore on a more frequent basis?
Yeah, so there's this idea of a feeder fund, which is effectively you get, there's a difference between global investing and offshore investing. And it's a subtle difference, but it matters. So global, you might be investing rands and you're taking rands back and you're taxed in rands. So that growth in rands is what you pay capital gains tax on, is how much is your money grown, and the taxman wants their share. If you're taking the money offshore, it's actually in dollars. And so that capital gains is the gain in dollars. And so that subtle difference actually does lead to a lot of value creation. So you can have the exact same fund version that is an offshore fund as a feeder fund. And the tax situation, it's not that you're not paying tax. Look, there's no offshore havens, and that's, I think, what people think of when they're thinking offshore investing. Now the world is so connected. This is all very legitimate. The taxman's getting his share, but it's been done in a way that actually makes more sense, because your hard currency gains, for me, is a much closer reflection of reality of how much the capital has gained. You get this slight, again, if you've been looking overseas and looking at other currencies, you'll remember when it was the Barmy army could only lift had to lift less than two hands in order to sing about how many rands they got for their pound. Now they have to use their feet as well. That's the reality of a soft currency versus a hard currency. And again, it's not a criticism of the rand. Like, an emerging economy needs a currency that has a little bit more inflation, so it's attracting people. We need to pay a little bit more interest so we can get foreign capital. It's in South Africa, we need to make the money here, but you can live a fantastic life as a global citizen in South Africa and participate in the incredible opportunities that exist offshore.
And the rand is a volatile currency, right? So at some point, I mean, I think in 2010 it was about 7 rand, then about 2020 it went to 14. We're now sitting, not to date this video, but let's say somewhere between 17 and 18. And the biggest issue we sometimes see, I think you see it with the offshore specialists, is, do I wait for the rand? When do I go offshore? And I think we've always been clear there is no perfect time. And to your point, this rand dollar averaging on a monthly basis almost takes that risk out of it, right? I'm not trying to time the rand or get the timing spot on. Now I have the option to do it on a more frequent basis, or having to save this lump sum and take a bet on the currency, which is never what we would recommend in the first place.
There's a lot of noise in investing, and the reality is that if you've got a number, people can almost bet on a number that moves. So anything with a pulse, they can have a punt on. And so the challenge is that the underlying engine, and that's why I always pull it back to get your money a job, because the reality is your money's working. That's why you're making money. It's not because you're guessing. It's not because you're having a flutter. It's working. And the challenge of noise is that people start trying to kind of get that timing right. And I always think it's a bit ridiculous, because if you get the timing right before the fall, you also have to get the timing right on the other side to participate. But that noise encourages like almost our demons to come out. We get excited about that. And so we all kind of know the general direction of the rand and the dollar. And that's not being negative about South Africa. That's a fact. That's just the way long-term currencies work in terms of established economies, emerging markets, how you encourage it, the institutions that you need. But the movements intraday, intra-month, for the year, almost cause a kind of like someone sitting on the couch, your teenagers saying they're going to go and clean their room, but the room stays dirty. And so a recurring premium product, what it does is it takes that noise away, because now what you're able to say is, every month I'm going to go. And that means some months, because of the noise, you'll do worse. Some months, you'll do better, but you're not actually that stressed about that, because over the long term, you kind of know you're not going to make money by guessing on currencies, because that's what it is. Some of the smartest people I know will try and focus on currencies, and they're really not trying to make money through currency trading. What they're trying to do is protect risk. So you can see why people are tense. And it's often on that lump sum basis. Say you don't normally deal with big numbers, and now you've sold your house or you've sold a business, and now it's a big amount, and now you get stressed. Often retirement is a similar one. When someone retires, the day they retire, they might retire a year earlier or a year later than someone else and get a completely different annuity being paid out because of the timing of when they retired. And it's the same as a friction why people don't access this amazing opportunity that is offshore investing, is because they're trying to time something that basically you shouldn't be timing. So for me, like I've always found it quite interesting about like allocation decisions, or that I just get my money as much of a job as I can. Like you send it off as soon as you can. And so that's what I'm really excited about with recurring premium, is you can get over that hurdle and you can get into the habits of getting these fantastic opportunities that are available, that have been available, and that will be available.
Well, there you have it. Not only do we give you access to a broader market offshore in currencies of your choice, in investments of your choice, you now get to access this opportunity with Old Mutual International on a more frequent basis. Join us again next time for another Wealth Debrief Exchange. And Trevor, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you, Tia.